First, we should say that we're talking with Jimmy Iovine, and for everybody at home. And second, we started talking about the Defiant Ones documentary, which is coming out tonight.
So what'd you think of it, man?
Which part?
The documentary.
It's sick.
You watched it?
No, I haven't seen the whole entire thing. I saw pieces. It's sick, but
Yeah.
you know, I saw it first with
me.
you.
Yeah. Well, that was done.
And what I keep saying, and I know it sounds hard for people to believe, but by now, you guys will have seen this. But if you think this documentary is crazy, wait till you see Dre's show.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The thing with Jimmy
He's
is
been
that
talking about it like crazy.
he knows how to. Signing with him was kind of like, okay, you come from you have a career of making songs and making videos. Okay, cool. All right, now you're signing with me, Jimmy. If you're signing with me, now we're gonna create your world. You know, we're gonna like establish your brand.
Well, you see, what happens is when people say it and they don't do it, and I hopefully do it, and I will continue to do it. You meet somebody you believe in, and you let them go. He says, Dre called me up one day and he says, I want to make a TV show. I said, great. He said, but I don't want anybody with me. I said, great. And that was it, you know. And by the way, we do that all the time. I do that with people I believe in. If I believe in the person, I just let them go and bet on them and not on me.
I got a chance to see the first 3 episodes, and I was so impressed with Alan Hughes's control over the tone, because it's an amazing documentary. Like the way it's edited, the way the music is put together, it almost feels that like the episodes almost feel like a song. It was great. And also I got to learn so much about you from the early days, where I really didn't know that you were so hands-on musically, because of how much success you had post that. And I think for some of us younger kids, we don't actually get a chance to know all that without really digging in deep and knowing, you know, what you actually did. And it seems like you kept getting all these lucky breaks, but I have to imagine that it was being in the right place at the right time, because you were always in the right place at the right time.
You could be in the right place at the right time, but you don't make the right choice.
Right.
You know, and you've got to make, those are all choices, meaning walking into that room, or, you know, getting called on Easter Sunday at my mother's house and Roy Sakala, the chief engineer, telling me, I want you to come answer the phones at Christmas, on Easter Sunday rather. And I said, okay. And I go to my mother and I say, Mom, I'm going, I was 19 years old. I said, I'm going to the studio. I got to answer the phone. She said, you're out of your mind. You're going to church. And then the family's coming over. There's your suits upstairs laid out on the table. I said, I'm going to work, right? So, you know, we all know that one. And I go to the studio, and there's John Lennon. And it's Roy Sakala and John Lennon, and they're laughing. And they say, we wanted to see if you would come in on Easter, because we just got rid of the other engineer, and we're going to use you, you know? And it's because I made that right decision on that morning. That's a life-changing decision.
Life-changing.
If I go to church instead of to the studio, so for everybody out there, make sure you always go to the studio instead of go to church. Pharrell tried to trick you and tell you church works, but studio's the place.
Yeah, that's right. Church.
When I met Dre and I heard his music on my speakers, it was like when I first heard Phil Spector. That's the only way I can explain it. It just sounded like nothing I ever heard before. It sounded like it was going to affect every record that ever came out, including rock music. And I knew nothing about hip-hop. But I just, I felt it at that moment. And I said, this guy will define Interscope.
How did you meet him for the first time?
John McClain, who was a great music guy, brought him in, him and Suge. He brought them both in, and they played me The Chronic. You know, and it was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the record was done. And they had recorded it literally falling out of a building. They were hiding, recording in the studios. You know, they had no money. They had no record company. They were just scrambling. But what that record sounded like, was so powerful. And so, see, at the time, people would play me hip-hop records, and I didn't get it. Because the bottom end was a mess. I know they were trying to do it on purpose or something. There were 808s, and none of it was making any sense to me. Dre used all that stuff.
True.
But he made it sound like Pink Floyd was doing it. And I was like, okay, this is something special, you know? And it was different than everything else. So I didn't understand hip hop. No, I didn't. So, you know, I heard that record, and then I started to understand who these guys were and what they were doing and how much they reminded me of the Rolling Stones. Because the Rolling Stones, when I was a kid, they'd scare you, but they'd bring you in with their music. Their music was so cool that they'd lure you in, but what they were doing was their form of anarchy in those days, you know? And so Snoop and Dre reminded me of Mick and Keith.
So let's go back to the time when you were doing the engineering stuff and you started to get your break. How did you go from engineer to producer?
Well, it's only 3 inches, but it's the longest 3 inches in the world to go from that chair to that chair, right? Because when you're engineering, you're getting the sound and making sure everybody's comfortable and the sound does what the producer wants it to sound like. In those days. Now, engineers are producers, but in those days they weren't. You were the engineer. You recorded it and mixed it, right? For the most part. So, first of all, being a red-blooded Italian from Brooklyn, I said, how can I make some money doing this? You know, and I knew producers got 3 points, which was 25 cents on a record at the time. I said, I'm being paid $10 an hour. I said, maybe I should do that. So that's just in spirit of the honesty of the defiant ones, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't sure if I could do it, but it just felt like you can get more girls if you do that. It felt like all those things, you know what I mean? It felt like being the road manager or in the band, you know, and to me.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to make the jump. And I wish I could tell you it was poetry, but it wasn't.
But when did you actually get to do it? Like, who gave you the opportunity to produce rather than
Patti Smith.
Patti Smith.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I was an engineer. She's working there doing her album before Easter, and I was working all night. I would go in late at night and like try to take famous records from the vault and try to make them sound like the records. So I would.
Oh, that's cool.
Just practicing, you know. And she would see that.
See, and I also heard you talk about how it's 99% the artist in the room. You know, it's not, you can't say that you're the producer and you're the one who made this, that you were, it seems like you were giving the due to the artist and that you were just working for them to help them achieve their goal.
What happened was that I had nothing, right? I'm from Red Hook, Brooklyn. I had nothing, like a lot of us, you know. I go in a room and I see these people and they accept me and I feel I have no talent. They do their thing, my life changes. You ain't got to tell me twice, man. You know what I mean? I got which was the more important side of the glass very quickly.
Right.
And I've taken that with me my entire life. I'm like that today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's just how I feel about people that are creative. They're so unique, and I don't have any of that. So I kind of like really respect it, and I honor it.
And to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it was your passion for trying to get that work out to be heard by as many people, because you mentioned that you thought that the labels weren't actually putting it out properly. And also, I wonder if your passion of seeing these artists create something of their own, that when you got to the business side, you almost felt like an artist, that you were putting together something of your own.
I thought when I started Interscope, I said, okay, what do I know? That's what I always do. What do I know? Because I assume I don't know anything else, right? Because I always feel that everything you know could already be wrong, right? So I'm always wanting to learn. So I figured, okay, at Interscope, why don't I find producers? Because I know producing, right?
Yeah.
And I can work with them. So that's why, you know, Interscope had
all the label deals with
Dr.
different.
Dre, Timbaland, Pharrell, you know, we had Will.i.am, Trent Reznor, we had all those guys, you know. So, And when you're working with people like that, and you relate so much, and their record comes out, you don't want to disappoint them, and you don't want to disappoint yourself, right? And most of the time, if you work in music that's a little futuristic, or not futuristic, but it's like on the edge, everyone else is saying no. You know, and it's unbelievable. Even if you, by the way, you could do it 10 times. Somebody looked at me on this under the same circumstances, said no yesterday. Okay, no matter what you do, how many times you do it, if you land on something fresh and new, someone's going to look at you and say no.
Yes, that's true.
And you know, so the Chronic, no one, you can't get it on the radio. You can't get it, you know, in Europe. Nobody's going to buy this music in Europe. I said they're going to be dancing to it in China. You know, that's what I said to my promotion staff. But nobody bought it. And then we just jammed it. And, you know, I say, look, you know, you guys figure this out, because if this record doesn't, if the Chronic, if G thing doesn't get on the radio, if I were you, I'd quit if I don't want to get fired. Okay.
I'm making that T-shirt, by the way.
That's exactly what I used to tell them. Pharrell knows I used to tell them.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You know,
I don't give a. That's what you. That's what you hear coming out of the door.
That's it, man. You know, it's like. By the way, Blurred Lines, no one heard.
It's true.
How do you not hear Blurred Lines? No diggity. I play for 20 radio people at my house. Brenda Romano brings the radio people to my house.
Shout out to Brenda.
Now I have 20 people from rhythmic stations, whatever that is, they're rhythmic stations. And so glad I don't have to kiss radio asses anymore. But anyway, I play for those 20 guys, and one guy, the biggest one, looks at me and goes, "It's too slow." I said, "What?" He said, "It's too slow." I said, "What do you mean it's too slow?" I said, "Didn't you hear the record? There was the greatest, one of the great records made in the last 20 years, No Diggity." I said, "How could you possibly, what are you talking about? That's the last thing I would say." It's too slow. It's too...
Yeah.
Lyrics will tell you. But anyway, they're always going to tell you no. And this movie's about, when they said sit down, we stood up. That's what the movie's about.
Defiant Ones. You got the Untouchables theme song in there.
Yeah, that's a director, you know. But there's so many. There's always, when you're working with people that are on the edge, whether it be John Lennon, you know, that want to push culture, you know, Patti Smith and, you know, Trent Reznor, you know, Pharrell, any of these people that want to move forward. It's always a fight. What'd you get out of it? What did you feel about it? Like you have a job, you work for a living. Right? What did you feel? What did you get from the movie?
Maybe the best way to describe it is what Paul Rosenberg said in it was that you guys produce each other. And to me, I thought that was really an insightful way of looking at it.
You know, people would always say to me, I want what Dre has. I said, no, you don't understand. Dre doesn't have anything. What he does have is trust. And he's very good at picking who to trust. Sometimes. It's what he did it with me. For some reason, he trusted me. And I would say, let's do this. And he would say, okay. And I trusted him. So, I mean, there were times where what this movie's about is we should not have stayed together. Because it was just...
Was there ever a time where it was just getting so chaotic that you wanted to tap
where
out?
the was bigger than the cat?
Yeah.
100%.
What kept you in?
Him, and Pac, you know, because Pac was part of it at that time. But I just knew the music was too good. I mean, I wouldn't walk away from Jimi Hendrix. I don't care if he chopped people's heads off. You know, I couldn't walk away from somebody that gifted, you know. I mean, they can go to a certain extent. They can go too far. Probably putting Death Row and chopping people's heads off probably wasn't a good segue. But I just would, I believed in it, man. I believed in what they were doing, what they were saying, you know, and I wasn't going to walk away from that. But it was crazy. At times it was dangerous, you know.
Yeah.
And, but I wasn't going to, like Manson and Trent. We had as many problems with Manson as we did with Pac. Not personally, but from the society and stuff, from the government or whatever, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. We had a lot of problems. That's what you'll see in the documentary. It shows that in episode 3. Episode 3 is where the Time Warner thing comes in.
Oh, yeah, right.
Where they throw us out.
Yeah, and you guys win again.
Well, they walked in and they said, we'll give you $150 million if you get rid of death row. Right? That's like saying you hate your neighbor and somebody's going to give you $200 million for your house. You get to live in it and they're going to get rid of your neighbor. But I didn't do that. I just said no. I wanted to roll. I wanted to roll it with them. I just really believed in them.
I love that Suge trusted you enough to call you up and have you guys.
Yeah, I had a great relationship with Suge. He just started breathing in too much, and he got caught up in it. When we first started, Dre and Suge, I consider them both very vital to the record company. So Suge used to come to my house every Sunday. And we play football, we hang out, we talk about, I try to explain to him, the music, because I knew he was talented. But then, as the success came, the bullshit came with it. And that wasn't good. That wasn't good. Too bad. And it didn't work out. But Dre got it, and it did work out. Snoop got it.
Yeah.
Snoop's incredible. He's a miracle. He's a modern-day miracle. Mm-hmm. And that guy's a modern-day miracle.
The fact that he's managed to stay relevant for so long.
And participate in what he participates in. I mean, this guy, you know what I'm saying? This guy's amazing. He is a modern miracle. And he's a superstar.
He's that likable.
He is just that guy, you know. And, it's hard. It's hard when you're in there because Pharrell runs up against us all the time because the only 2 things I ever disagreed with Pharrell were only 2 times. One was the mustache, and the other one was the Pepto-Bismol looking liquor.
Yeah, cream. Yeah,
I sent you a picture of it the other day. I found it in my cupboard.
Those are the only 2 times. Yeah. Everything else I was in.
You were right.
I said, Pharrell, nobody's going to drink anything that's like Pepto-Bismol. I said, how you found inspiration from that is beyond me.
Tastes great.
But it's hard to get there, though.
Yeah.
Right? So, but otherwise, he runs across it all the time. He's running across it right now. He's going to put an NERD album out. I'm sure, people are going to say it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that. But he's one of those guys that you just roll it, man. He knows, and you got to bet. And if you're wrong, fine. I know a lot. I have got people in my life like David Geffen like that in my life. I disagree with him all the time, and a lot of times I bet on what he says. I figured, why not? Mm-hmm. I got a good shot at being right, but so does he. And I roll it with him, So that's the whole idea of the documentary. The whole idea of the documentary is to get knocked down and get back up.
Yeah.
And to not be afraid to change gears or to pivot. Because you've got to pivot. People don't pivot. They become, remember those guys? Right? And that's what you become. You become remember those guys club.
the Remember Those Guys club. Wow.
That's
a good one.